Welcome to Happy Clubhouse with a review of the Bandai high-grade Universal Century 1144 Zaku III. Specifically, we'll be looking at these two here together, which is the white Zaku III and the green Zaku III Custom. The Zaku III Custom is one of the earliest releases in the HGUC line numbered 003, and then the plain Zaku III is numbered 014, so they've been around for a while now. And there is a lot to talk about, so let's get right to it. The Zaku III was released in August 2000, selling for 1,620 yen. The Zaku III Custom was released in August 1999 for the same price. Both boxes are illustrated by Shino Masanori, and they measure 30 by 19 by 7.5 centimeters, even if my badly water damaged boxes here look a little bit deformed. The side of the Zaku III's box gives us a front and a back shot along with some in-universe information. The other side has a collection of studio shots and then some info on the kit itself. The side of the Zaku III Customs box is the same on this side, as well as on this side with all the studio shots and the text. For the Zaku III, it's split across 8 runners with one of them for the polycaps. One of the runners here have a few pieces missing when I shot this, and the actual entire runner is supposed to look like this. The missing pieces are all for the beam rifle, which I took in the past and gave it to another kit some years ago. The Zaku III Custom gives us 8 runners as well, polycaps and all. And here let's take a short moment to see how Bandai makes variants of kits here by bringing in this green runner, and then its white counterpart. As you can see, Bandai uses gates to connect extra blocks on the mold that expands the runner further into either the plain Zaku III's parts here in white, or the Customs parts below in green. For stickers, the Zaku III has just this black one for the back of the mono eye, and then one for the mono eye itself. The Zaku III Custom has the black backing as well for the mono eye, and then also one for the mono eye. And additionally, it has these small yellow ones that go onto the front of the feet. The Zaku III's instructions gives us the expected studio shots that go along with the coloring guide. And then the center colored pages are all background information on the Zaku III, which is quite extensive. Notably, the redesign here for this kit credits Hajime Katoki with a few words from him about that process. The black and white side is all for assembly instructions. The Zaku III Custom follows the same layout, though the instructions itself is trimmed a little bit shorter overall. The middle color pages gives us the same kind of background info, but this redesign section doesn't have a name for the designer, so probably it's not Katoki. The black and white side is for assembly instructions as well. So each kit took about 2 hours to put together nice and neat, and they're about the same in complexity because, as we'll soon see, they share a majority of their parts with one another. Some people have criticized the round edges on this kit, like the legs and the feet, and they say that it makes the kit's lines less sharp, and I admit they do make the kit look a little bit low resolution. Still, the Zaku III's overall pyramid-shaped silhouette screams Xeon styling through and through, and I'm sure a lot of people still want this kit for that distinct characteristic. The early HG kits really kept stickers to a minimum, and they were quite proud of how they represented the colors accurately in plastic. The cockpit hatches stand out nicely, especially on the plain Zaku III. The two-tone color scheme on each of them are mostly accurate, and you're not going to find any big areas of missing colors. But the Zaku III Custom does use a rather odd shade of bluish gray, which can look a little bit cartoonish on the MS, and it looks especially out of place on the gun. Still, I think they're good enough for anything you'd expect from a Zaku III. But now let's address the biggest issue of these kits, the seams. I know a lot of YouTube reviewers like to make a big fuss out of seams, but really in this case it really is a little shocking. There are basically seams on every single surface, from the shield on the arms, to the arms themselves, to the thighs, to the lower legs. Everything is split cleanly down the center with a big old seam. The snout at the front right here is particularly bad with a big gap even. I mean, if seams really upset you, then this is the stuff of nightmares. Now on the bright side, the kits can be taken apart easily for sanding and painting, so credit where credit is due. You'll just have to do a lot of sanding to erase all the seams, but it won't be a troublesome process to take the kit apart to do so. Now let's take a look at some common features, starting with these beam cannons built right into the front skirts. They simply swing up, and the 2 handles on the sides can then swing out. The one here on my Zaku III is incredibly loose and it's just going to fall down by itself, but the same one on the Zaku Custom doesn't do that, so maybe it's down to the luck of the draw. The front skirts have always seemed like an odd place to have cannons, and they look really dinky and not that intimidating. The hands can grip the handles, but it's going to take a little bit of careful posing. Next, let's take a look at the big and thick articulated shield right here. They each have 3 grenades on the inner side, and there are some mechanical details to cover things up here, so it really looks quite nice. The shield itself is thick and substantial looking. The shield can rotate along a peg, and it can also rotate along the polycaps's axis. The top of the shield can swing along an axis as well. I think many people see and remember this shield when they think about the Zaku III, so it's good that it's so satisfying to hold in the model kit right here. The heel on the feet here have this odd little gimmick called a heel claw, where it flips out to give the feet more traction. It is a little bit disappointing that the heel piece right here is really hollow on the inner side, even though they try to pass it off as some kind of frame structure inside. Much like the beam cannons on the skirt, I can't say these would ever be a reason that would get me interested in buying a kit, and they're nice curiosities, but they just aren't that substantial overall. But the sculpt of the kit itself is good, and I think it's a good looking Zaku III, and it better be because I don't think they're gonna get any sort of revive kit anytime soon. The domed head here on the Zaku III looks really alien with the 3 antennas here, and it really looks like no other mobile suit. You get these tiny little black vents on the back of the head right here, and they did it in plastic too, which is a wonderful little detail. Swapping in the head of the custom, you can see the same level of detail, but this head has the advantage of hiding its seam with 1, 2, 3 pieces making up the head. There's overall more mechanical detail here than the plain Zaku III, though some fans will no doubt miss the round bulbous top. And here's the spiked armor of the plain Zaku III. It connects directly with the peg, so you can pull it off, sand it, and then put it back on really easily. This one right here points outward horizontally versus the customs one here, which has a round shape on top, and then a longer extended portion that goes out in the bottom. They may look like small things, but they change the overall impression of the silhouette by quite a lot. Going further down to the knees, the customs' knees are actually the same armor but with a red kneecap adder on top. It's a little ugly in the back though, which is entirely hollow. And here's the Zaku III's backpack with the white fuel tanks providing some strong contrast. The 2 sides are actually articulated and they rotate along a peg. It's big and it's bulky, and the articulation helps the kit be much more expressive. The custom has this backpack, which is drastically different with the 2 prominent giant fuel tanks on top, and these can be adjusted a little bit, as can the thruster bells underneath. This part also suffers a bit from the round edge problem, so if you didn't like the feet, it's really rounded in the back here as well. And while we're in the back here, we have 2 different back skirts. The Zaku III's looks quite unassuming, with a few thrusters inside here color separated in black. But they do show us just how exaggerated it becomes on the custom, with the skirt going down most of the length of the leg. And interestingly, this little thruster here on the inside is a separate piece and you can paint it quite conveniently. The engraved emblem here is really handsome, and get this, the entire inner side gets a separate piece so the skirt isn't just a hollow shell. This part here, I have to say, the custom is way more impressive than the plain Zaku III. And let's look at their beam rifles, which are entirely different. The Zaku III has this one here with a bayonet at the front. It's a little strange how the bayonet is mounted actually on a polycap piece right here. It's the sort of thing that won't fly nowadays, and we have actual proof of that when we bring in the same rifle, but it's an entirely new sculpt from the R Jar Jar, released in 2019. The new gun mounts the blade with a slit that pegs into the handle, so there isn't that giant polycap looking right at us. It has red for the pipes, though it's not like it's hard to paint on the old one right here. The odd little arm that juts out from the handle here is actually more accurate on the old gun, where the new one just fills up that empty space with plastic. The little part here on the back is articulated, and strangely the rifle doesn't play nice with the trigger hand, though it does fit with the regular hand, but even then it rattles around, which is pretty lame. And speaking of hands, we get 2 pairs of hands with each kit, which is a very rare thing with the left trigger hand here. It was very early in HGUC line, so Bandai was probably still exploring their standards, and this is something they decided not to continue doing regularly in the future. For the custom, we have an entirely different gun here with a big aiming sensor on the side that has a cable running into the body of the gun. The rod at the front here is a nice little detail, and the very long side handle gives the gun a lot of character. What's not so good, as I mentioned before, is that it shares that strange bluish gray color that's used on the frame parts, and the overall round shape of the gun may not be everyone's cup of tea. It's very 80s sci-fi robot design, and I personally have a bit of a soft spot for it. Rounding out the weapons, we have 2 beam sabers for each of the kits, and they're the solid kind as you can see, though they aren't molded with a holding hand like some other early kits. I'd say they're mostly unoffensive as far as solid beam sabers go, but the beam blade up here has a strange squarish cross section and I'm not sure why. I'm pretty sure the swords were always supposed to be just regular round beams, but regardless, this is simple enough to sand back into a rounder shape, or you can just alter the whole thing to accept the beam effect part. Onto the articulation, the heads basically don't move much at all up or down on both versions. They do spin around a full circle though. The shoulders swing outwards a little bit like this, and it's even a little more limited on the other side because of the spike armor. They swing a full circle without any problems. The biceps allow a full rotation along a peg, and the elbows bend 90 degrees. The hands can be adjusted on their ball joint, and they rotate around a full circle. The really slim waist lets the upper torso be adjusted on 2 axes, and it rotates side by side about 45 degrees each way. The front skirts are the cannons that we've already seen, so they can flip up, and the rest of the skirt is fixed and it doesn't move at all. The legs can be adjusted on their ball joint, and they kick forward only about 45 degrees, blocked by the big skirt armor. The knees give about 45 degrees only as well due to both the age of the kit and the gigantic lower legs. The feet swing upward this much, and backwards this much, and then side to side this much, limited by the leg armor around it. I don't think it's a shock to anyone to find out that the articulation on an old Zeon type mobile suit isn't that great. This may be a Zaku, but really its proportions are closer to a Dom really, so the design already gives it an uphill battle. You will be limited in the sort of poses you can do, and that's just the reality of it unfortunately. On to the size comparison, here is the lower end benchmark, the entry grade RX-78. And then the upper end benchmark, the handsome new Gundam. And the Zaku III is just about the same height as the new Gundam. Always bulky, as Kakarot197 would say. With all that said, here's a Hobby Clubhouse 3-point verdict on the Bandai high-grade Universal Sentry 1144 Zaku III and the Zaku III Custom. Number 1. It's a Zeon suit for die-hard Zeon fans. Everything about these two screams Zeon, from the pyramid-shaped silhouette, to the stylized spike armor, to the chunky shoulder-mounted shield. There's just something very special and beautiful about the aesthetics of Zeon engineering, and I think that's been the main reason people have been buying these kits since their release in 1999 and 2000. So, if you're in it for the looks, then there's nothing else like these. Number 2. There are seams everywhere. Not all older kits have seams all over the place, but these kits do. It's not good even in an era when engineers just really didn't think much about the seams at all. They show the age of this kit, and if you're painting it, it's going to be a lot of extra work unfortunately, so do have that in mind. And number 3, they give you 2 unique choices. While the bulk of the kits may be the same, the differences between the Zaku III and the Zaku III Custom isn't just an extra antenna here or an extra panel there. If you think about it, they don't have that many new parts between one another, and yet they look distinct to the point where you won't ever just buy one of them and say, I got a Zaku III, I don't need the other one. This is the good kind of remolding that gives us more cool mobile suit designs while letting Bandai cut back on production costs. It's a win-win for both sides. So that's a review for the Zaku III and its custom brother, a pair of double Zeta icons and an often forgotten end to the Zaku bloodline. Let me know in the comments which one you prefer and why. Thank you so much for watching. Come look us up on social media with updates on upcoming videos and sneak peeks at future projects. Links are in the description below. or hang out here some more with one of these other videos. But before you go, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to be notified of new videos from Hobby Clubhouse, and I'll see you next time.